Today, we're heading down to Florida's Space Coast, to a city that's growing so fast, it's starting to feel the pressure. This is the story of what we're calling the Great Squeeze in Palm Bay.
You know, this really is the story of a city that's caught between two powerful forces, its own huge ambition and the, let's say, harsh reality on the ground. It's a classic growing pains story, but on a massive scale.
So on one side, you've got this incredible, optimistic vision. The city's mayor has actually called Palm Bay the greatest city on the face of the earth. I mean, that's a bold vision for the future, a hub of prosperity and strength.
And that vision, it is fueling some absolutely explosive growth. Get this number, 1,372. That's how many new homes are planned for just one development project. And believe me, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
But then, you hear from the people who actually live there. And for them, it feels less like a vision and more like, well, chaos. As one resident, Robert Stice, told the city council straight up, "This is insane."
And that right there, that's the heart of the problem, isn't it? It's this massive, high-stakes question. How in the world does a city build for the future without destroying the quality of life for the people who are already there? Let's dig in.
All right, first, let's talk about the promise side of things. What's actually driving all this development? Well, it really boils down to one word: opportunity. And to really wrap your head around the scale, just look at the details of that one project we mentioned. We're talking about almost 354 acres, nearly 1,400 homes of all types, plus commercial space, a daycare. I mean, they're basically building a whole new town from scratch.
And this all feeds right into that official city narrative. The mayor recently put out a proclamation celebrating Florida's economy, calling the Space Coast the epicenter for manufacturing. The message couldn't be clearer. Growth is good. Growth means jobs. Growth is progress.
Okay, but that official story is smashing head-on into the daily reality of the people living there right now. These are what we're calling the voices from the gridlock. Suburban gridlock. That's the term that keeps coming up, and it just perfectly nails the frustration. You see, the city's roads, they just weren't built for this kind of population boom. And like another resident pleaded with the city council, you can't just look at a map to understand this. You have to experience it. He said, take a ride, take 5 minutes, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's that feeling of being stuck in traffic, just trying to get to a store that's right down the street. It's maddening.
And this is where it gets really serious. The stakes are incredibly high. One resident, Mary Alderson, brought up a truly terrifying point. What happens when an ambulance or a fire truck gets stuck in that same traffic? Suddenly, this isn't about being late for dinner. This is about life and death.
So, you have this huge promise of progress on one side, and these really serious problems on the other. How does a city government even try to manage this? Well, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of policy and rules.
So, one of the main tools they have is something called a development agreement. You can basically think of it like a big, formal contract. The city and the developer sit down and hash out all the rules for a huge project, including what the developer has to contribute for things like, you guessed it, roads.
And another key tool is something called impact fees. Now, the idea here is really simple. Growth should pay for itself. So when a developer builds something new, they pay a fee that's supposed to go directly to funding the new infrastructure, the roads, the parks, the emergency services that all those new people will need.
To see how all this tension plays out in a real-world fight, let's look at one super specific and, yeah, pretty controversial example: installing speed cameras in school zones.
And wow, did this get people fired up. The debate pretty much split right down the middle. On one side, you had supporters saying it was absolutely essential to protect the children, but on the other, you had opponents, including a councilman, who called it government overreach, even saying it was promoting a surveillance state.
But let me give you one number that kind of cuts through all the noise: 3,970. In just the first few months, that's how many warning citations the cameras issued for speeding in school zones. That's almost 4,000 close calls.
All of this stuff we're talking about, the roads, the safety measures, the public services, it all costs money, a lot of money. And this is where Palm Bay is facing its own painful financial squeeze.
Just take a look at this chart of what the city needs to spend money on for 2026. See that huge purple slice? That's transportation, eating up 61% of all the requests. When you add in public safety, you realize that fixing the infrastructure isn't just a priority, it's practically the only priority.
So what does that overwhelming need look like in actual dollars? $57.4 million. That's the bill for the projects they need to fund in just one single year to try and keep up.
And where does all that cash come from? Well, mostly from property taxes. They're calculated using something called the millage rate. Every year, the city council has to set that rate, and it's a huge decision that directly hits the wallet of every single homeowner and business in the city.
So where does all this leave Palm Bay? Well, they're on a journey down a long, unfinished road, and there are no easy exits. And you know, their story really shines a light on a fundamental challenge that tons of growing towns are facing all over the country. And it leaves us with this final, really critical question. It's not just for Palm Bay, but for any community that's feeling this squeeze. How do you build a great future without completely paving over the quality of life for the people who call that place home today? Thanks for joining us for this Explainer.